Going on, people? What's going on? What's up? Welcome to Food Chess. Happy New Year. First episode of 2026. Top of the day. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for all the subscriptions and rocking with me throughout last year. This year, let's work. Let's get it in. Yeah, man. Hope everyone is doing well. Like over the holidays, I was like able to listen to some of the things that are pertinent to the channel. And there was one interview that was quite interesting to me, and I think that you're gonna want to like stick around to the whole of this video to kind of really watch and kind of understand what is happening here and what is being said. Now, there's a guy I just discovered his channel. His name is Frank Zanu, and I think the guy makes a lot of like great commentary on things pertinent to the continent, things pertinent to development, and various things that needs to be done. And he had an interview with there was a podcast, I think it's called State of the Nation, in South Africa, and was talking to the gentleman, and they had a good discussion. And it kind of like there's some of the problems with Africa. And I'm the type of person that, like the catchphrase for this channel is thought provoking. So things that provoke my thoughts, and I always like to hear new perspective. And when I was listening to the interview, I was like, you know what, this is something I should definitely share with you guys. So I'm gonna share the video, but we're gonna discuss after the video. I'm gonna like share my view and some of the points that were raised in this conversation was that why Africa continues to blame a system of government that it didn't create. And if you watch my channel, you know what I think about democracy in Africa. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about why democracy itself may not be able to fix Africa. Another thing that I observed was that where African countries really ever, like, did Africans really get independence? Like, most African countries received independence in the 1960s, and, it's celebrated. But is that really independence in its true form? And also, one question I always ask, and the same thing with in football, you have all these people who play for a country, right? But they were not born in the country. And whenever I talk about it, people say, oh, well, you might not be born in a country and you stay. I don't believe that. I think there's a certain element of patriotism that you have when you're born and you live the experience of the country. Now, that brings us to the point that how can Africans really be patriotic to a country or a system that they didn't build? Now, the last point is that as an African, do you see yourself as your tribe first and then the country? I want you to think about this. And then once I'm going to play the video and then we're going to discuss some of these points. I'll see you guys soon.
In the ego. We need a think tank to help us, to talk about it. Africa doesn't need doers anymore. Africa needs people to rethink the whole thing, because it has gone past the threshold. All other countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, you name it, South Korea, there is a threshold of about 25 years. When the condition goes away, everybody expects for you to start showing signs of that you can do it, you have the potential. Ghana got independence March 6, 1957. 1957 to 2025, we are talking about almost 70 years. It's about.
Yeah.
How can people continue to say, let's wait and use the same method? Let's pick. It is proven, Mike, and Africans should believe this. The process of mass election, pick one of you and pray to God, He will fix us. We have seen that process will never fix Africa. No, it will never fix it. It's been shown. All you have to do is 3 times is the charm, right? 3 times is the charm. So at this point, go ahead.
I presume programs like DEI in America, diversity, equity, and inclusion, black economic empowerment in South Africa, exacerbates the problem.
It does.
Plays into the same problem.
That's correct.
It's giving you something to blame.
That's correct. That you see, here is the thing: where people look out the window and see across the street that Mike and his friends are able to climb a tree with only one hand. Well, I'm a human being. Mike is a human being. The philosophical argument that can never be negated is that humans are mortal. Frank is human, Mike is human, therefore Mike and Frank will die one day. Okay, because it has been proven over time. So when you see Mike and his friends climbing a tree with one hand, you say, oh boy, but they are human. I can also climb a tree with one hand. So you step outside and try to climb a tree with one hand. Now, when you realize, oh shoot, these people must be different. Now you have to find a reason. You concoct a reason to tell people why you are not doing it. You see, here is the thing that went wrong. The early they call them independence fathers, Julius Nyerere, Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, all of them, Kaunda of Zambia. They took power from their colonizers. And they said they wanted to become independent. What happened was not independence. That is not independence. African countries did not fight for independence, and they have not initiated independence. The countries I just mentioned were not put together by Africans who live in it. Rhodesia, southern or northern Rhodesia, was not put together by the Africans who live in it. Nigeria was not put together by the tribes that live in it. Ghana was not put together by the tribes that live in it. Benin, Togo, Mali, none of them. So the true independence would have been, you'd have told the Europeans, please go, because we want independence, not from you, but from each other. Because we were independent tribes and you force us together. So you say to the colonizer, please leave because we want independence from each other. So after the colonizer left, the countries should have turned to each other and say, goodbye. Mr. Kosa, you and your people go back to where you were. The Zulus go to where you were, and the rest. That would have been the real independence.
And how would that have solved the developmental problem, or wouldn't it have solved a problem? Would things look different if that was done?
One thing you should keep in mind, okay? We can't continue using the word developmental. There is no process. Nobody goes to school to learn that, right? So the tribes, if they have one language, one identity, one philosophy, they make up their own self-determination and create a competition among the tribes. So now they can choose to go outside and contract with others who have done it. But what you're looking at today is you are asking a group, I'm writing a book called A Country Without People. So you're asking a group of people who never build something, which is the countries they occupy today, and asking them to become patriotic to something they didn't build. So even talking about even development, it's putting the cart before the horse. Multitude of tribes that has totally distinct language. And wherever language is different, the culture, the behavior, the self-determination, the philosophy, the values are different. Now, the Zulu is waiting on others who are Zulu. So I did an experiment, not an experiment, but I went to speak in Kenya when I was there. So I went to Nairobi University and I said, there were about quite close to more than 100 people in the room. I said, all the Kikuyus, raise your hands. And hands went up. The Luos, hands went up. Any Maasai, hands went up. Any Kampa here, hands. So I went about 6 or 8 tribes, and everybody raised their hands. And I paused for a while and I said, all the Kenyans, raise your hands. The same people raise their hands. So I asked them, when you wake up in the morning, which one are you first? A Kenyan or a Kikuyu? You see the problem right there.
All right, cool. So if you listen to that video, you kind of see that great, and I will encourage everyone to kind of, it's I think the whole interview is under the State of the Nation podcast, and I encourage you to go and listen to the full podcast because this is just some of the parts of it that caught my attention. Now, the first thing there that fascinated me was why African countries continue to blame a system of government that they didn't create. Now, here's my take on this, right? Democracy is a system of government, right, that most African countries seek to be a part of. It's like democracy is the thing. It's like, it's every democratic state, whatever. But when you actually look at it, most of the successful countries in Africa are not really a democratic nation as it is pertinent to the West. So what am I trying to say here is that the form of democracy practice is not really the quintessential democracy that you see that you see in America or in Europe or wherever, right? It's always, it's Africa's own kind of democracy, but Africans don't want to call it that. They want to call it democracy, or they seek for it to be mirrored to the West. But my question is always, is that really what it should be? Why is this? Democracy is not founded in Africa. And democracy is not something that was created on the continent. Now, the mindset and the psyche of people on the continent are not really democratic. And which is why you see that democracy does not, it doesn't work most of the time. It does not work. And Frank Zanu makes this point in different ways in this interview. So that's one thing we Africans need to think about. Is democracy really what it is? Now, everybody talks about Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is a military. Now again, we're not saying that a military government is the best. All I'm trying to say is that Africa needs to find its own form of government that is by the people, for the people. You have to create it and make it what it is, that is tailored to specific countries, taking into consideration religion and tribes within each country. That's the only way to make things fair on the continent. Trying to borrow democracy as it is in the West, it's never going to work. Now, let's move on to, and this ties into the fact that, can democracy really fix Africa? Me personally, I don't think so. I think every country on the continent needs to find a system of government that works for herself and use it. Now, one of the most interesting things about this interview is that they talk about the fact that, was Africa really given independence? Now, if you watch most colonies during the colonial era, Africa was, each country, let's take for example Nigeria, right? Nigeria is made up of a huge amount of tribes, almost 300 languages. You take all these people, you put them in a country and call it Nigeria, and you forget that these people have different ideologies, different religious beliefs, they've been doing things differently for ages. They have their own customs, everything, and you think that they can coexist. It's impossible. And that is the point that Frank Zanu makes, is that there's too many tribes, too many different thoughts, and to stifle them into a country, it's not really independence. It's not. So most African countries are not really independent. They're not. The Europeans left, but they left them in chaos. And they're still dependent because they didn't create their own, they didn't become independent internally of themselves, which is necessary. And that is why the story of Biafra is important. And I think this is one of the reasons why Biafra and the Igbos in Nigeria wanted to succeed and become their own country. It's making sense, right? Now, that might not be the result that every country should use, but there has to be a way to acknowledge the influence of tribes on that continent. Because everybody wants to pretend like, oh, you're Yoruba, you're Efik, you're Ibibi, we're all the same. We're not all the same. Even though we're all Africans or we're all Nigerians, everybody has their own way of doing things, and we can coexist in the country, but it has to be acknowledged. It needs to be acknowledged. Another thing, how can you be patriotic to a country that you didn't build, or to anything? That can you be totally patriotic to something that you didn't create? It's hard. It's hard. It's really hard to be. And that's one of the things that, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to football, you have all these people who are born in different states, and you want them to play with their heart on a team or for a country where they didn't grow up in. I have my doubts about that, and I will always do. I will always do. If you did not, it's just hard for you to be patriotic to something you didn't build or something you are not a part of. And then the last point is that, are you your tribe first before your country? Are you your tribe first? Like, a lot of people identify with their tribe before their country. That is something that needs to be acknowledged as well. And that is true. A lot of people do that. A lot of people say, I'm a Yoruba man. Like, that's what it is. So I think that Frank Zanu makes a lot of points. But again, there's another key aspects as well that I want us to get to. Because most people will ask, what about America? America has people from different countries. Europeans came to America and colonized it. There's Irish, there's Italians, there's this. How come it works? Well, there's a reason for that. Now let's watch another part of this episode.
For example, of the USA, which has sort of taken a whole lot of diverse European people and built an identity out of that. What worked there that has failed to work in other places?
Well, you have to explain what you mean by taking the diverse people.
Well, the American population, as it grew out of immigrants from a wide range.
Oh, yes. Okay. Good question. I've been asked this question many times. If I believe that diversity together doesn't, well, I can give you plenty of examples. One, I am an American through naturalization. Malema is a Xhosa, but he's in South Africa not through naturalization. He was forced to become one with Zulus and others. That's a difference. Let me explain. There are blacks in America, there are Spanish, there are Asians, there are Middle Eastern people, all kinds of people. No colonizer came and forced them together. They came already on a foundation that has been built by a homogeneous people, and then started asking people to come so I can use. So we are all in America as voluntary contractors, because we saw the ecosystem and I knew my potential. I can plug into the existing ecosystem. It was already there. That is what attracted people to say, I have a skill, a talent, and that country has an ecosystem inviting us to plug into an existing ecosystem. So that is the difference people didn't seek to see. In Ghana, you have the Twi, you have the Ewe, you have the Gan, you have the Dagomba. They are not naturalized in Ghana. They were forced to become Ghana. That's the difference. Now, let's look at it. When you walk into the UK or into America, the people who came into the United States from other places like Japan, China, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, you name it, France, Italy, they came to the United States of America. When you look at their background, where they came from, it resembles exactly what they have been able to build in America in their communities. All you need to do is to go to Little Tokyo in Los Angeles and see the Japanese that live there. Build a whole little Japan inside the United States of America. You go to Chinatown and you think you are in Beijing. They've built a whole Chinatown. And then you go to Flatbush, New York, and see the Koreans. They've built Seoul in America. You go to Dearborn, Michigan, and see the Middle Eastern people. They've built the Middle Eastern replica in Dearborn, Michigan. You walk into the black communities, there are no black communities, even those from Africa. And you look at their continent, and what they build in the United States just resembles what they left behind.
All right. So the last part of that interview is very telling, and I myself have always wondered this, and I'll indicate why it's interesting to me about what Frank Zanu said. Now, the interviewer, which he's kind of dull. If you listen to the whole interview, I think this was an opportunity for him to ask very, very tougher questions to Frank, but he didn't. He was very mild with it. But again, it was, all in all, it was an interesting interview. Now, one of the things that caught my attention in this part was that, people, like I mentioned, people ask, how come the US, everyone, the reason is because most migrants were not forced. It's different when you're forced to be in a place than when you're willing to be in a place, or when you're willing to do something, your approach to it is different, right? It's a whole different ballgame. So that is why when most people come from different places to America, they're able to come in and do, and like Frank mentioned, there's already a system in place. You plug into the system and you get what you want to get and give as well. And you can leave and come back. So the system is unbreakable. It's already there, right? And then you are willing, you come in. But another point that he made, which is fantastic, and which ties back to the problem of Africa, is when most people from other places come to America, Chinatown, even in Zambia, there's a Chinatown. I was shocked, right? When I visited Zambia, I saw it. So other people come into countries and they're able to replicate their homeland successfully. Italians do it, Irish people do it, Chinese people do it, Koreans do it, Japanese do it, and most. But do you know people that can do it? Africans cannot do it. Do you know what Africans replicate? They replicate exactly what is Africa. Let me give you an example. Here in the US, right, I've always wondered why this is the case. If you go to any African restaurant, now, mind you, the restaurants are in America, right? So there's a better environment, facilities are cleaner. But whenever you walk into an African restaurant, no matter what, now apart from Swahili Village, now shout out to Swahili Village, right? I think that is one of the cleanest African restaurants. I know there are other ones, but right now that's one coming to my mind. But every other African restaurant that you go to, the continent is also good, that you go to, right? It resembles like you're in Africa. It's almost the same thing. You might see flies. The way the customer service is terrible. Even the African stores, it's terrible customer service. Apart, not all, but majority of the time. Because there's no customer service culture in Africa. The psyche of the customer is always right. It's non-existent. Africans bring it here. So apart from the psyche of the people, even the way of life, the way the shops look, the presentation of things, it's just the same. So that is why what Frank said, there's credibility to his idea. And I think that if you're African, you should definitely watch that interview. But guys, as always, let me know what you think. Again, this is Full Chest. I'm back. We're going to be, talking about very interesting things in 2026. So stick around, man. As always, kindly subscribe to the channel, comments, likes, much appreciated. Peace.